Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you my fall reading recommendations. So when I think of fall, I think of vibrant colors like the leaves, but also dark and gloomy rainy days. I remember when we first moved to this town in October, it literally rained every single day. So that's what I think of fall, especially like Halloween was always like wet and gloomy. So these are books that either kind of have that atmospheric feel to them, where they're like dark and gloomy, and then also like kind of have that wet murky setting. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So first up I have The Bone Garden by Tess, and this is one that I actually read back in October a couple of years ago that I really ended up enjoying. So basically the premise of it is that in present day a woman is she moved into a 1800s house, and when she's cleaning up the garden she discovers this body that was buried there that is from the mid 1800s. So she's curious as to how this body has been there for over 100 years, like no one knew about it. So she's looking into the history of the owners of the house. And so we also flash back to Boston during the 1830s, and we follow Julia, whose sisters just died during childbirth, and she's left taking care of her niece. And then also Nora, who is in medical school, and because he doesn't have the money to pay for it, the school makes a deal that if he steals the bodies of freshly dug like graves, they will keep him in. So he's doing that, but their paths end up crossing when there is the series of murder, and they are both the suspects of it. So what I really like about this is that, especially that is like so atmospheric, is that if you can like picture Boston in the like early 1800s with like fog and all that, like that is like quintessential fall for me. Like I love Boston. We've been there a couple years ago, and I like fell in love with the city, and I can totally picture what it looked like hundreds of years ago. And so I really love this. If you like kind of like dark mysteries with a historical twist in it, definitely check out this book. It was so good. I definitely want to reread this, I think maybe next year, because I do remember the general plot. So I'm like, okay, maybe in a year from now I'll kind of like remember less. So it'll be kind of rereading it for the first time again. But yeah, this one is so good. So if this is like something for you, like read this. It is so good. So next I have The Alice Network by Kate Quinn, and this is a book I actually read last September, and it was one of those that I read at the right time in my life. So my grandmother passed away on August 16th last year, and this is a book that I picked up shortly after that, and this one provided me with a distraction. It kind of helped me escape my grief for a little bit and just focus on this book. And I think the ones that are so immersive are perfect to read during the fall time, just because you can lose yourself in the book and just all that stuff. So this one kind of has a dual storyline. So it follows Charlie, who's after World War II. She is pregnant and her parents are trying to get rid of the baby, so they are going to Switzerland. But when they land in the UK, she ends up running away because she wants to find what happened to her cousin Rose during the war. And then she crossed paths with Eve, who is kind of her unlikely sidekick. And what I really like about this is that it has a dual storyline with World War I. So we follow Eve when she was a spy working for the UK, and just her stories. But what I really like about this one in particular is that the stories between World War I and World War II kind of very like seamlessly weave amongst each other very well. And like I said, I really loved it. It was really good, and this is one that I want to reread soon, just because how much it meant to me. And so yeah, like I said, I think you guys would really enjoy this one as well. So this is one that is actually really different from what I usually gravitate towards in terms of reading, but this is one that I got from Christmas for my aunt, and I was like, I've read a couple of Nora Roberts books, and so I'm curious to see how I feel about this one because it's a little bit different, but it's actually so good. And I finished the second one a couple weeks ago, and it was amazing. So definitely give this a try. But it is the Year One trilogy, like I said, by Nora Roberts. So this takes place in our present day, and there is this plague that goes around that wipes out 2/3 of the population around the world within a matter of weeks. And so the ones that are immune to this like disease or virus are those who have magic in them. So if you're familiar with Nora Roberts' kind of magic system, it's very much relates to this. So as you can tell, if all these people have died, it's going to create anarchy. So it kind of takes off from there. But this one is so creepy and dark, and there's a lot of imagery between like good and bad, white and black, like, or like light and dark, those things. And like even this, isn't that just fall? Like, I love it. It was, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised by this, so like give it a chance, because it does take a while for the plot to build up because you're following so many storylines. But the second one, like I said, was so good, and I can't wait for the third one to come out this year. So definitely give this a try. I feel like it is definitely like dark and eerie enough to read during fall, and like there's a thing with crows in here. So like I said, this one I was pleasantly surprised, and I think you guys will like this too. So this is one that I read a couple of summers ago, and I fell in love with this author, and it is The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. And this is another one of the dual storylines, but I feel like especially in one of the settings in here, like it just screams fall. So it follows a girl named Nell who on her 18th birthday finds out that she is adopted. She was basically left stranded on a boat from the UK to Australia, and that's how her parents found her. So that shakes up her whole world. So when Nell passes away, like 70 years later, her granddaughter finds out this past, and this mysterious storyteller, like this mysterious fairy tale book that somehow has a connection to Nell, because that's what Nell had with her when she was on the boat. So her granddaughter embarks to the UK. And while this is going on, we do get kind of a dual storyline that the story kind of flashes back to, as Nell's granddaughter Cassandra is finding out more about her grandmother's family's past, and that this takes place in like the tail end of the 1800s, and it's just dark and gloomy London, which I think is perfect to read in the fall. Like this one is had me totally gripped. Like it is almost 600 pages, and I literally read this in 2 sittings. Like I could just sit outside during the summer and just read all of these. Like that's how good it was. And so like I said, I recommend like you check out this author. Like she has so many incredible books, but either start out with this one or The Storyteller. Those two are my favorite, but like I said, this one is so good. And lastly, I have The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. So this takes place in the 1970s, and it follows a girl named Lenny whose family is very dysfunctional. Her father fought in Vietnam, and when he came back, he wasn't the father that she recognized. So they figure one of the people that her father went to war with passed away, and he was left this guy's cottage that he owned in Alaska. So they figure all their problems will be solved, so they basically pack up their life and move up to Alaska, but things don't really go to plan. In Alaska, it's either very bright outside all the time or dark a lot, and that leads to a lot of problems. And this deals with a lot of domestic violence, so there's trigger warnings for that. But what I really love about this one is that in terms of the Alaskan setting, like I feel like I could totally see this community, like what it was like living in this cabin, and just like living in this type of kind of its own like world, like the final frontier. I think that's really interesting. And my uncle's a vet, and he does like he'll go fly out to Alaska and does like the dog sled racing, so he'll be a vet for those. And so I've seen pictures from his trips, and I'm like, it's beautiful. And like I feel like this book did a really good job at like kind of showing that environment. So this one is definitely very atmospheric. It's not an easy read just because it does deal with some of those darker subject matter, but nevertheless I still really enjoyed this. And this cover, I love the metallic road there. But yeah, definitely check this one out as well. I feel like it'll be a perfect read for fall. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think are some good fall reading recommendations. I always love seeing those. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.